Hey everybody, welcome back to the Fish Tank. I'm Fish, and I thought it would be fun today to have a look at the two new cards that were just added to Minion Masters. This is version 1.47, Into the Void, and we've got Jez'Ra, the Voidmother, and we've got the Morgrul's Mark. So let's have a look and see what we're going to do. So we're going to have a look at the cards on paper, and then we'll see how they play. So here's just a quick deck that I threw together so we could test this out. Right, so Jez'Ra, the Voidmother. She's a 9 mana Voidborn minion, so very expensive, not mythic. She has 675 HP, so that's okay. She does have a melee attack that can only hit ground. Now she does do 130 damage, but her attack is a 2-part attack. So she'll do 2 swipes for 65 each, and those together are seen as 1 attack. And that's important when you look at this ability here. So she has a Void Tear ability, and the cost of that is 3 mana, but it will be reduced if she gets a kill. Now, as mentioned, her 2-part attack can only trigger this reduction once for each of that double part, for the overall double part attack. But what does the Void Tear do? Okay, so the Void Tear allows you to spawn either 2 Elite Swarmers in front of her, or 4 Cowardly Imps behind her. So it does cost 3 mana. You can reduce the cost of it. And of course, remember, the way the abilities work is that once you play it, you will then get it back, but it will be 1 more mana. Okay, so it starts at 3 mana. You can reduce it, but then after you use it the first time, it will come back into your hand and be 4 mana, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's the idea of her. She's got this either the tanky support in front or the range DPS behind. So you can choose which of those depending on where you place them, and obviously the idea is to get them as cheaply as possible by reducing the cost of her Void Tier by her getting kills. Okay, so she is the first card. The second card is Morgrul's Mark. So this is a Voidborn spell, and what this does is it will give an opponent, so an enemy, ground minion taunt, and it will summon 6 swarmers around that minion. Interestingly, those swarmers also have rush, which is a keyword that we see on things like the Screaming Scrap, for example, where they have no summoning sickness. They don't have to wait to activate, they activate immediately. So the idea of this is that you can manage the battlefield by removing some hard to remove units by placing this on them, and the swarmers could kill them. So for example, if they got a Stixie in the pocket or something, you could throw this on, and depending on what the masters are, etc., this may or may not kill it. But whilst it will summon the 6 swarmers and the opponents can potentially deal with those, the ground minion that's gained taunt, that will keep taunt, so then your units will then target that. So that's potentially a good way to get past a front line and try to remove some support units, for example, depending on the range. So I think the range of taunt is 5, so taunt of course forces nearby enemies to attack it. Crucially, even units that don't normally attack minions. So for example, a Bazooka Scrat is a good example of that. So just thinking about this, haven't even thought about this before, we might see this used in conjunction with the Bazooka Scrat, where you can force it to attack an enemy unit of your choice. Interesting. There you go. You get a free deck building idea hot off the press. We saw it. It was born right in front of the camera. Okay, so those are the 2 new cards, and we'll have a look at them in action very quickly. And just as mentioned, this is just a test deck. Not supposed to be a good deck, just supposed to be a test deck. Right, we've got the Magma Core Voidborn Arena. Let's see if we can check out these 2 new cards. So first thing we can see is we've got the Morgrul's Mark in our hand. So this is a spell you can use anywhere on the battlefield. And remember, it will give taunt to an enemy minion, and it will also spawn 6 swarmers around it. So for example here, taunt. Now they're probably not going to do a great job, but we managed to swarm it with the Blood Imps, so they did do a good job eventually. But you can see the swarmers are pretty weak. But the taunt can be very important. If the swarmers don't kill the unit, the taunt will remain on the unit. So that could potentially make that unit very susceptible to the opponent. Right. Now we have a look. We've got JezRa in our hand. I'm going to spawn JezRa down here in the pocket. So we can see we get the Void Tear. And we can see if we try to play it. Lost my fingers for a second there. We can either play the Swarmers ahead, or behind we can play the Cowardly Imps. So, she's going to get a kill here. We'll reduce the cost of that. Let's put some Swarmers down. And you can see the ability's back in our hand, but now it's up to 4 mana. She gets another kill, goes back down to 3 mana. And again, we have the option, so let's put some tanks here in front of her. You can see it does take a little while to spawn, so you do have to take that delay into account when you play it. You can see the ability is then back in our hand for 4 mana. Okay, so I don't think we need to complete the game, but hopefully that gives you a good insight as to how those 2 new cards work, and give you an idea of what you can do with them. Right. There we go. That was a quick insight to the 2 new cards added in the latest Minion Masters patch, version 1.47. That was Morgrul's Mark and JezRa, the Voidmother. So some new cards there. I think that Morgrul's Mark could be very, very strong. That taunt is going to be very powerful, not only as mentioned with the Swarmers attacking it, but also anything else potentially attacking it. And maybe with the Bazooka Scrat as well. We know we used to have that meta with the Bazooka Scrat being forced to attack things with the Mark that was applied by the Vulture Prime. That was removed as an interaction. This could replace it, so watch this space. Anyway, let me know in the comments, as always, what you think about these 2 new cards. Which ones are you looking forward to? What sort of strats do you have in mind? It's always difficult to know how popular these cards are going to be. Sometimes we have some new cards that really don't affect the meta at all. Other times we have cards like Mana Chasers that are just meta-defining for an entire season. So be interesting to see how that works out. Make sure you hit the subscribe button if you're enjoying the content here in the Fish Tank and want to keep up to date with all Minion Masters news. We are closing in on 2,000 subscribers, which is amazing. So thanks to everyone that's coming along on this journey. My name's Bad as a Fish, and this, as always, is an Awkward Wave.